Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good program lined up for today. We'll have Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show, and then we'll have Steve Palazzolo. He's the head guy at Pro Football Focus. Get his thoughts on the draft coming up this Thursday night. Probably only one Gator will be drafted. That shows you where the talent has been. Gator baseball tonight against Stetson. Tomorrow night, softball hosts the semis, the lady semis, and Gator golf, men's SEC championship up at Sea Island cranks up tomorrow. Let's go to the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, and it's the late night Gator talk show host, Buddy Martin. Good morning, buddy. How you doing?
Good morning, Shane. How you doing? It's good to be your David Letterman to you, Johnny Carson.
That's who you are, my friend. Buddy, let's do this because I was on your program last night, and I don't know if I'm sure a lot of my people watch your show, but there's some people that don't. Josh Pate did an interview with Coach Billy Napier, I guess last week or something, aired it. Speaking of that, Billy Napier was in Orlando in his little caravan last night. It looked like it was a good turnout. I don't know if any of our listeners went to listen to him speak, but Josh Pate did a kind of an interview, just kind of tell everybody where they can see this interview. And it was like, nothing's edited. I think that was the one thing that I was surprised with when it's all said and done.
Yeah, well, it's on, just go Google Late Kick with Josh Pate. I don't know, some of you might not be familiar with Josh. I am a little bit. I didn't know that much about him. Interesting background, by the way. Just as a side note, he was in construction when he was in Columbus, where he grew Georgia, and there was a local talk show. I don't know who it was, and he kept badgering the producer, let him come in and observe what was going on. And finally, he did, and he went in for a couple of weeks and observed. And one day, the co-host called in sick, and he couldn't be on, so they put Josh Pate on that day, and they never got him off the air. He started a career there and moved up to the little CBS stuff, 247. And now he's got his college football show, which is national in scope, actually. And he's gotten a lot of respect from a lot of people. And he had this interview with Billy Napier, and I was really impressed with Josh Pate. The questions he asked, his knowledge, the way he commanded the, quarterback commands the huddle, the way he commanded the interview. And he said he got him to talk, which we haven't been all that successful. Shane, the media, getting him to say very much, to reveal much about himself. And among the things he talked about it wasn't earth-shaking, but he did say, yes, he's going to call the plays. We kind of knew that. You've been saying that the whole time. He kind of didn't answer the the special teams question, but he gave a stat back and said, yeah, well, we did this, but we did that, and so on and so forth. But overall, he was very frank, and I loved what Josh Pate did in the interview when early on they gave him total access, by the way. Unprecedented for a media person to get total access in Florida. For whatever reason, they decided they wanted someone to come in and really do an inside look and from the inside. And they gave him, even Josh said it was amazing. So he had an all-day experience there at Florida. And then during the interview, when Josh Pate asked him, well, what's going on here? And what do you think about the reception on the outside? And I'm paraphrasing. And Billy turned it to him and said, well, you've been there all day. What do you think? This is where I thought Josh Pate really impressed me. He didn't give in and say, oh, it's so great. He said, well, I think there's two things here. I think it's what's going on inside here and how you feel about it and what the perception is on the outside. And I don't think they really match up. And that was precisely it. sometimes, as you know, football coaches and players, especially, kind of circle the wagons mentality and say, out there is different than here. We got our rooms, our house. I think that's what Billy's doing as a coach. And I think that was what Josh was telling him. So it was a brilliant interview. He addressed a lot of things, nothing earth shaking, but just insightful things on Billy. And after in this interview I had with Josh last night, he said he had been to Georgia and Alabama. Florida's got everything they got in terms of. So Florida is cutting edge right now. They're not like some, jackleg school out there. They're cutting edge, and he says they're doing a lot of right things. And I think Billy Napier is a good coach. He came here as a good coach, and nothing has changed. As to what happens, like you and I say, Shane, it's anybody's guess. But I thought it was a really insightful interview. I wish Billy had done this a long time ago. Would I have liked to have done the interview? I would have. But I mean, hey, that's okay. At least he's revealing now to us who he is. And I think that's very important given the personal relationships we've had with our coaches, like Coach Spurrier in the past. So consequently, I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, Brian says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, paid is significantly better than Paul Feinbaum.
Different thing. It's a different thing. Pate does a 1 hour interview show.
Well, I think they're different type.
Yeah.
Paul's just a
A
media
4 hour
guy.
show, Shane. Would you like to do a 4 hour show?
Hell no.
Okay.
It's hard enough to do an hour show.
Yeah, so it's really different.
But Paul fills it up with morons that call too. I mean,
well, it's a call, but it's people who like, hey, Shane, don't call them morons or you're a fan.
Well, there's some people,
there are some morons. There are some morons. Right.
There are some morons on that show. I don't watch it, but I've seen clips of it. So I do want to mention what you said about, you wish you would have gotten the interview. Obviously, you've been around here a long time. You had a great relationship with Urban and Coach Spurrier. I mentioned on your program last night that I feel like Billy opens up more to the national media than he does the local, because if he gives the local beat writer X the full-time interview, that's going to piss off all the other guys.
I think you're right. You're right. You were spot on. There was a strategic move. And I asked Josh Pate about it, and he said, I asked how he got the show. So I informed him I was coming there to do spend my day at Florida, and I would like them to be a part of it. But if they weren't going to be a part of it, I'm still coming there. And I said, who did you approach them, or they approach you? He said, Rick Hurtado approached the PR guy, approached him. Look, I'm not jealous. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't a good, it was a very good interview. And my main thing was, yeah, I'd like to have done an interview, but I'm really glad that Billy finally decided to tell us who he is.
I agree with that. We have a text here on the Titan MR text line. Says, Shane, this is Paul from Pensacola. I'm watching you from Burlington Bond today, and my brother's watching from Boise, Idaho.
But that.
Where's Burlington Bond? I don't know where that is.
I don't know.
Okay. I know where Boise, Idaho is. So
well,
thanks for listening. Thanks for listening for sure. Christopher is giving us a recruiting update on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. He says, good morning. Justice Ross Simmons is on an official visit this weekend. Need to lock this guy down. Big physical receiver, good hands, get separation at the line, and can win that 50-50 ball. Would fit nice with our shifty, speedy receivers. All right.
You got that big lineman.
Even if we lock him down, it doesn't mean a whole lot. So
sorry. Yeah. They got that big lineman to reclassify yesterday, 6'7" kid, 315 pounds. So I guess he'll be able to report sooner. So I guess that, and here's the thing, France pointed this out. They're going to be 2 over scholarships now. So something's got to give.
That means they'll be cutting some guys.
Yeah.
Meaning they will tell them, look, you're not going to have much of a chance here. We'll help you in the portal to see if you can find another spot. Yeah. All right. So we got another text here on the Titan MR text line from Glenn. He says, buddy, I know we aren't going to fire Sully, but what do you think needs to change regarding Gator baseball, obviously? Well, first of all, before you answer it, Glenn, with all due respect, the beginning of that comment, I know we aren't going to fire Sully, is maybe the most ridiculous thing ever sent in on the Titan MR text line. This is by far the best baseball coach we've ever had here, the most successful, brought us our national championship. We played for a national championship last year. I mean, all right, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Well, I kind of think that's what Glenn was saying. He might not have phrased it right. He was saying he knows not going to fire Sully, and he's not suggesting that. But what are we going to do? What we're going to do is we're going to try again next year. It's really unusual to be here in the middle of almost May now, and here we are talking about a team that I hope makes the playoffs. I guess they're going to be in there someplace. But their record, they're playing Stetson again tonight. They've lost to Stetson once already this year. Their record is barely above 500, and it's really Sully who's the reason for that. So obviously, Sully doesn't need to be fired. Something has to change. You said last night, and we've been saying the whole time, the young pitchers have not come through. I don't know why I'm not there. We've gotten spoiled. Sully has won every year. They got him in there and got him to the World Series. So what you're gonna have to do is get more good young players, get some miles on those young pitchers, and it's unfortunate that Caglione has to go out this way. I'm reading a stat today about him. And by the way, we talked about it last night. He did not get a home run in the last game against Vandy.
Right.
They did pull the game out. So that he had 9 straight games, home runs, and he's got all kinds of records. And Shane, you and I agree. He's the greatest baseball player, given his ability to pitch as well, that Florida's ever had.
Yeah, I agree. Brad Wilkerson would be my second. Brad's a good friend of mine, but I would put Cags there for sure. Andy says, does Sully need to chill a bit? He always seems mad, almost Mike. That's his personality. He's a good dude off the field. Here's what and like I said, I'm not going to be one who even questions Sully. I would say this in today's world, I think he's going to have to look at, we brought in the kid from Southern Miss last year, a tremendous pitcher. But I think we need to look at those small mid majors, look at their best players, whether it's a pitcher, outfielder, whatever.
Totally.
Look at the JUCO ranks, because now it's rent a player. That's what sports has become. Okay. The days of getting a top high school players and them being there for 3 years or whatever, we got lucky with Cags. But I think those days are over. I'll be anxious to see if Sully changes his approach and goes that route. Tim wants to know what was the UF baseball record the year you played, buddy?
Gosh, I don't know, but we didn't win that many games. So we didn't play that many games. First of all, we probably only played about 30 games. And I would say probably somewhere a little above 500. My freshman year, we had a little better. We had freshman teams back then. Our freshman team was a little bit better now. But, no, but Florida baseball, I mean, getting to the World Series was a pipe dream then. So, no, it's just so much better than it was. It's like saying, what was football before you, Shane? Well, they didn't do anything. They had some good teams, but no championships until you and Coach Spurrier came along. And somebody asked me last night, well, when did Shane get here? And where about your background? I said, well, Shane got here 2-time. I don't know if this is exactly right, but I know you were the MVP of the season one time and the MVP of the game, I believe, in the SEC. I believe that's right. And you guys lost that game, that first SEC game on that weird play. And then you won the next year and you started the string. So what were the MVPs exactly, Shane? You got the game MVP and the
no. I was the SEC Player of the Year my sophomore and my junior year.
Oh, both. So it was SEC Player of the Year. Okay, now I got that straight. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, had a chance to win it and be the only 3. I think Herschel Walker is the only 3-time guy to win it. I could be wrong, but only one person or nobody's ever won it 3 times, and didn't have a great senior year. Garrison Hurst won it instead. Burlington.
Yeah, Antonio unfortunately caught you that one.
Burlington Bond is in Vermont, if anyone cares. Sounds
like
a very nice place.
I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't know that. I know Burlington, Vermont, yeah, but I didn't know Burlington Barn. Never heard of it.
Yeah. Okay, another text here on the Titan MR text line. Chris in Mayaka says, did you or Buddy go to the Brantley benefit last night, wondering how much they were able to raise? Should they put a CAG statue in front of the baseball field? I was not able to attend the event. I heard it was outstanding. I was out of town. Um, I don't know if they put, I guess the only way they would put a statue of CAGs out there, and this is not going to be anytime in the near future, it's going to be later on, is if he's the National Player of the Year.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, because he didn't win a championship. What is the criterion? Statues are not, I don't know how you get a statue anymore, but there's a few things that need to be changed. I wish we need to get somebody on here and explain to us.
Well, if he gets the National Player of the Year, that's equivalent to, or I think it's called the Golden Spikes Award. That's
Right, Golden
equivalent to the
Spikes
Heisman
Award, right,
Trophy.
right.
Um,
Well, that might be
and
true. That might be true, yeah.
yeah, but it's not like they'll build that thing in the next year or two. It will be 10, 15, 20 years from now.
That's come later. Yours is yet to be built, Shane.
Yeah, well, that ain't gonna happen.
That'll be one of you. That'll be one of you on campus somewhere.
We'll make one and put it on campus and let people throw
All right,
stuff at
let's do
it.
that. Hey, let's put
Chris
one.
from Mayaka says
Do you
Michigan
have
State
one out of
basketball is running into,
Spurrier's?
huh?
Is there one out view out of Spurrier's, Round Grill,
Is there a statue?
of you?
Mm-mm.
Is there a plaque?
Not that I'm aware of. Now
All right.
he has um two two SEC Player of the Year trophies are in
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
and he and I went in. We were the first to go into the Georgia Florida Hall of Fame, our bust
right,
or whatever.
right.
That's in there. I let them borrow those and
We
haven't
need
gotten
to
them
have a
back.
bust of you out there. Is what we need to have. Maybe
Nah.
if you Coach Spurrier. Hey, by the way, I'm going to eat Friday night at Spurrier's. A little combination birthday for myself, my wife, and my son. And what should I order?
Oh gosh. That you're asking the wrong person. I haven't been there
Besides
in quite
treats.
some time.
Yeah, I've eaten there a couple of
I'm a
times.
meat and potatoes guy, so
I,
I'll leave it at that.
I had the fish last couple of times. I think I'll go with
I
the
don't
meat.
eat fish.
I'm going to go with the meat on Friday night. I think I'm
All
going
right,
to.
this is Chris and Mayaka on the Titan MR text line said Michigan State basketball is running into similar issues. Izzo is a Hall of Fame coach, but unwillingness to bring players from the portal is making them non-competitive. Sully needs to bring in transfers to fill void. Well, he has done that. Um, he's brought in transfers. Maybe he just needs to bring in a few more and not worry about the young folks, the young high school kids. Paul asks Shane, do you know where Riley Kugel's going to end up? He committed to Kansas, so we wish him luck with the Jayhawks. Real quick before we move on, this day in sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life at Campus USA Credit Union. This day in 1989 at the NFL Draft. You know who was the first pick in the 1989 draft, buddy, by the Dallas Cowboys?
I do not.
That would be Troy Aikman.
How do you do?
He turned out to be a pretty good player.
I'm
He's a
not good
pretty
on the draft. Shane, will you help me on the draft a little bit on Thursday night? I know what the quarterback situation, but I really have no idea what's going on. Do you?
no. I got Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus coming on. I don't really follow the draft, buddy. I didn't get drafted, so I could care less about the damn draft.
I understand.
Um, I mean, obviously the quarterbacks. It's a heavy quarterback class. I don't know which ones are. The top three I think are going to be pretty good players in the league, with Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May.
Hey,
The other ones
Daniel,
I think are a toss up.
more I think about Daniels and watch the replay of him. He was an amazing player. Florida helped him win everything with the stats he put up against him. But that guy is incredible. I mean, he's like Lamar Jackson.
Okay, so we got a text here from William on the Titan War text line. He says, "You do have a plaque at Spurrier's in the front, along with Danny, Tim, Carlos, Alvarez,
Yeah, that's what I
Eric Rhett,
thought.
Emmett, and Billy Donovan."
The front on the walk there. That's what I
Oh,
thought.
all right. I'll have to check that out next time I'm there.
I'll
I
get a
didn't know
picture
that.
for you Friday night, okay?
Okay. All right. All right. Robert on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, I like to see UF change the criteria to get in the Ring of Honor at Steve Spurrier, Florida Field. Yeah, that was Jeremy Foley set that. I don't know if that's ever going to change. I think the only people that are eligible for the Ring of Honor are Urban for winning a national title, Lomas Brown. Did Lomas just go in the College Football Hall of Fame or the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you got to be in one of those Hall of Fames to be eligible. But I think Carlos Alvarez, who I know is in the College Football Hall of Fame, he needs to be in the Ring of Honor.
Definitely needs to be in the Ring of Honor, without question.
I don't know.
Didn't win a championship, but I mean, he definitely.
They ain't got nothing to do with it. Hell, Emmett didn't win a championship.
I know.
Wilbur didn't win a championship.
That's true.
Yeah, championships are that should not even be a criteria, quite honestly, unless you're a coach. All right, buddy, we got a couple more questions here on the Titan MR text line for you. This one comes from Bob. Bob says, buddy, have you been keeping up with the Gator softball team? They now sit at 37 and 10.
Everybody wants to give me a little game on that. No, I never said they were not a good softball team or they wouldn't go far. I said they had not met expectations, and I was right. So, but they've done better since then. So maybe I inspired them.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they've done better. They've only lost 10 games all year long.
I know, but Shane, we have this argument all the time. At the time I brought it up, I said things were not going well. By the way, you failed to mention, I also said that the baseball team is not doing well, and they got to stop losing those midweek games. And you said, oh, it doesn't matter, doesn't matter. It does matter. And
well, I would rather them win the SEC series than the midweek games.
Well, they didn't do either, Shane. That's the thing. You can't lose and expect to be a championship team. Anyway, the point was, for the softball team, bring it on. I'll take it. I made a statement. It was honest. I stand by it. And yes, they're playing well, and they'll probably have a good tournament postseason.
Text on the Titan MR text line from Daryl says, Shane, as much as you love the outdoors, I can't believe you don't eat fish. I don't. My son doesn't either. My son guides and fishes his tail off. Neither one of us eat the fish.
and you're from down there around where there's a lot of good fishing too.
Yeah, I just don't like the texture of seafood. Don't like the way it tastes. Just not my thing.
Hey Shane, in case we don't have time, Scotty Scheffler, a couple of anecdotes on him if you got time.
Yeah.
I heard an amazing thing. Tony Romo posted on Twitter, or what do you call that thing, X. He said he's played 500 rounds. 500 rounds of Scheffler and never seen him shoot over 70. Think about it.
500 rounds. How do you even know you play with 500 rounds with somebody?
Romo counted. So, I mean, that's amazing. And the other thing is that now you realize that how much money that Scheffler's won. He's won these last 5 events. Arnold Palmer, Texas Children's Second Masters, Heritage, $16 million in 44 days.
I mean, here's how, like, people, I don't think, if you're not a golfer, you don't really understand how good those guys are. So I was fortunate enough in my golf group. We have a big, huge golf group. This past weekend, JC Deacon who's the golf coach, is part of our golf group. And when he has time, he'll play with us. But he's been coaching all year long. Just came out to have a nice round before they head off this was last week. So they had kind of an off week for the players, even though they practiced or whatever, getting ready for SEC. What do you think he just shot? Just showing up, hadn't played all year.
68.
Shot 66. And it could have been about a 63. But, I mean, that goes to show you, if Scotty Scheffler showed up at the UF golf course, he would probably shoot 58 just on a –
yeah.
I mean, it's a hard golf course. My point to the story is these guys on the PGA Tour are so damn good, it's scary. And he is just annihilating everybody.
Hey, did you hear this stat? Taylor Goff put it out that Scotty Scheffler can predict within 1 yard of where his ball is going to go.
Yeah, I saw somebody send me that. I didn't look at it. But, yeah, he hit a bunch of balls, and he can tell you exactly how far it's going to go.
Wow. It's amazing. That is amazing.
So Dan says stat career leaders can make the Ring of Honor. I don't think that's.
I
I
don't
think
think
you have
that
to be a national leader or something. But
John
anyway,
Reeves John Reeves is not in there. He
no,
set the national record for yardage in passing. How come he's not in there?
yeah,
You
I don't
know,
know.
John, he was one of your coaches.
People want to know now. He goes, "Do you eat shrimp, lobster, or crab, or nothing that comes out of the water? Nothing."
Oh my God. Alligator.
You can maybe get me to eat a little bit of shrimp if it's like grilled with some Cajun seasoning or something like that. But I do not do lobster and I do not do crab.
Well, we got a
Um,
new thing on you now. You'll hear about this every day.
Cameron on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, wants to know what my favorite club in my bag is. Ooh, it
Driver.
ain't my putter right now. I'm putting terrible. Um, by the way, I shot 76 today. JC shot 66. Um,
Oh.
I played good
Hey,
that
how many
day.
putters do you own?
I only have two.
Wow. Did you know the great Arnold Palmer had a barrel full of putters downstairs in his basement? Every now and then he'd go down there and change them out. He had a whole barrel full.
Yeah. So I don't have a favorite club. There's nothing I don't like to hit if I have to hit it. But boy, they talk about mental, and I feel like I'm very mentally tough, buddy. I feel like that's why I beat a lot of people when I play them in golf. But
Yeah.
boy, the way I've been putting the last month or two is it's about to drive me insane. I got to
Age will
make a
do that to
change.
you. Shane, age will do that to you.
Yeah, my eyesight's gotten bad too. I have to play with these damn prescription sunglasses, and it ain't helping either. All
Welcome
right, buddy, before
to
we get out of here, who you got on your program tonight?
Scott Carter. We're going to talk a little bit about what's coming up with Rick Eaton, and he'll be probably a second round pick. And by the way, tonight I want to talk about something. Here's this ominous comment. You'll remember this. Be careful how you spend your NIL money. I mean, recruiting is not exactly an exact science. Miami has lost 7 ESPN top players of 150 players from Cristobal's first 2 recruiting classes. And there are a lot of factors going on, but they spend a ton of money. And Shane, it's like buying stock. There's no sure thing. You see a player you think is going to be good, you bet your money, you spend it, and you can get stuck and get burned. So I think somebody said on your show the day, what happens if you invest in a guy in IL and say, I'm going to sponsor this left tackle, and he turns out to be a lousy player. Like I want to invest in him next year. So be careful how you spend your NIL money. It's not an exact science.
There is none, and we talked about it yesterday on my program, and I got blasted on the text line and here about people were trying to compare paying high school kids to go play college ball, and then because I basically said you don't know how they're going to perform,
Oh, you know what you
and then
get?
they said, well, it's no different than when you go to the NFL. But you have an idea if a guy, and plus you got to think about this: rookie contracts are not a whole lot. That's why there are tons of college athletes making more money through their NIL than the rookies and the second and third year guys on NFL rosters are
Great
making.
point.
So I just I don't know. I mean, you got to pay them. I get it. I have no problem with that. I like to pay them after they perform. Once you see production, let's do that. So
Can't do that anymore. But Shane, the
no,
idea that you get a pile of money and go buy a championship team is ridiculous.
yeah. I mean, we'll see. Ohio State just spent a lot of money. We'll see how their team turns out
Better
for
win.
sure. All right, buddy. Good stuff as always, my man. Have a
Shane,
great
good
week.
morning.
We'll
Have a
talk,
good day.
buddy. Softball's at Georgia this weekend.
I'll be
They're two
watching.
games out of they're 2 games out of first
I'll be
place.
watching and I'll be rooting and stop trying to. You're the problem right there. See, you're the little agitator. You're the little agitator. I'm gonna get you, Shane, for that.
That's the great Buddy Martin. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're going to take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We're going to talk about the NFL draft with Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union.
Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Dave & Buster's Eat, Drink, Play, Watch. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Radware is a family-owned business that prides itself in excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. We're going to go back to the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, and we're joined by Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus. He's the head of football product. Good morning, Steve. How you doing, bud?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, let's just start with the quarterbacks. That's what everybody's talking about. There's a bunch of them that people think are going to go in the first round. We pretty much think Caleb Williams is going to go to Chicago. Who do you have graded the highest at Pro Football Focused?
Yeah, I mean, we have Caleb Williams number one on our board, but then it's Drake May after that from UNC. And I was kind of surprised that Drake May has taken such a beating during this draft season. I thought that he would be the clear number two prospect. I know Jaden Daniels from LSU, had such a great season, the Heisman winning season, and well deserved. I'm just surprised that people have soured on Drake May as much as they have, and some people actually putting Jaden Daniels above him, and maybe even saying, hey, he should be contending Daniels for the number one overall spot. So I'm still a believer in Drake May, that he's got some things to iron out for sure, but I think his potential, what he's already put on film, and some of the things that he can clean up, I think make May the guy at number two. And yeah, I don't know if Washington will see the same way, but I think I don't know that we know much for the Commanders at two yet. So we'll see on Thursday night.
Yeah. All right. Everybody wants to compare guys that have been playing in the NFL. Everybody wants to compare Caleb Williams to a little bit of Patrick Mahomes because he does a lot of off-platform throws, scrambles, runs around. Do you agree with that or no?
I mean, when you make comparisons, there's a difference between making a comparison and saying these things are similar, they look alike, and equating them, right? So if you're equating Caleb Williams with Patrick Mahomes, your mind is immediately going to say, oh, so he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL and he's going to win 3 Super Bowls. So I'm not ready to do that. I think where you would compare things is Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech worked mostly outside of structure, faced a lot of 3-man rushes, was not playing within the system all that often, and made special plays outside of it. And then when he got to the NFL, it was like Mahomes took all of his potential weaknesses and turned them into strengths, started playing within the system, doing what he needed to do. That's the comparison I would make for Caleb Williams. I think he can win within the pocket. He clearly had to do too much last year at USC, had some fumbling issues. But Williams outside of the pocket, some of that magic that he creates is unbelievable. I mean, I've never seen anybody really throw to his left with the velocity and accuracy that Caleb Williams has. So I think the Mahomes similarities are just that, right? You can make some special plays. However, learn how to win within the pocket more consistently and choose to do that. And then we've got something special down the line.
Yeah. So Drake May, big, strong arm guy. He can move as well. Do you compare him to anyone that's playing now or played in the past?
I don't have a great comparison for Drake May. I think, yeah, the biggest thing for him, you can see all the special throws on film. I think he's outstanding throwing to the middle of the field. I think Drake May's touch and accuracy and just feel for putting the ball where it needs to be between the hashes is just outstanding. I think he's got to get a little bit better on the easy stuff, the layups, as people are saying, which I know sounds crazy, but bouncing hitches and swing passes and just footwork type of issues for Drake May. But he's only a redshirt sophomore. I think there's room to grow, and I really like Drake May's potential because I think he's already got a lot of the special that you need to make a big impact in the NFL.
When watching the tape on Jaden Daniels, I was on the call when Florida gave up the historical night to Jaden Daniels running and throwing the football. Is he Lamar Jackson, but a better thrower, in your opinion, or am I off base there?
I don't know that he's Lamar. I mean, I know that Florida game was rough for the Gators, but Daniels, I mean, there's something to him just being the most special player on the field so often last year. I think Lamar is more of a really good designed run game type of guy, really good feel. Whereas Jaden Daniels, he'll sit there in the pocket and make some throws and go through his progressions. Jaden Daniels is just an outstanding scrambler. I think where the differences are, Jaden Daniels takes a lot of sacks, so you get a lot of negative plays with some of those splash plays. And I think Jaden Daniels takes a lot of big hits. I think one of the things that's made Lamar Jackson so special is I want to say durability, but I know Lamar missed the end of the 2 seasons with injuries, but they were more freak injury type of things. I don't think they were playing style driven. I worry a little bit more about Jaden Daniels' playing style because he has no fear. He's going to take some big hits, and as a quarterback, you got to protect yourself. So I think Lamar Jackson does that really well. Jaden Daniels needs to improve there, but I think Daniels does a great job of throwing the ball, throwing with, going through his reads, and I think that's why so many people were impressed with Jaden Daniels and have him as the number 2 QB in the class.
Yeah. The other 3 quarterbacks that have potential to maybe go in the first round, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and J.J. McCarthy. Do you think that any of those guys will go in the first round?
I think J.J. McCarthy definitely will. I mean, I think he's one of the more difficult projections. I think for all of us that watch college football and you're going through this whole season and Michigan's making this title run, and I don't think anybody along the way was like, man, this is because they have top 10 quarterback J.J. McCarthy. He's the guy that's driving this thing. But then after the draft, people fell in love with him in interviews, and he's still young and he's got a lot of tools. But I've got some questions as far as JJ being in that mix in the top 10, but I think he'll go. I think he will go pretty high. And I think there are teams around the league who do like Michael Penix Jr. a lot. I think there's a lot of probably mixed opinions on Michael Penix. He's a guy who probably should land top of the second round, but there are teams that like him in the first. And with the desperation of teams like the Vikings at 11, the Broncos at 12, and the Raiders at 13, I could see Michael Penix Jr. getting into the first round as well.
Text on the Titan Mark text line from George. He says, Steve, who would you pick if you had to pick a wide receiver, Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Man, I'll still take Marvin Harrison Jr. I know he didn't run throughout the whole process, and Malik Neighbors is just such a big play threat. I mean, his explosiveness pops off the screen, and I love Malik Neighbors. I just think there's a subtlety and consistency to Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game that is potentially getting overlooked as we get into the offseason and the workouts and the whole thing. Marvin Harrison Jr. is an excellent route runner. I think he's good after the catch. I think he has enough long speed, even though he didn't run a 40. His body control and nuance to his game is as polished as you would expect from the son of a former, high-end NFL receiver. So I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but it is very close. I mean, you're talking 2 legitimate wide receiver ones. I think Neighbors has the size and physicality and speed to be a big play threat at the next level. I love both guys, but I'll take Marvin Harrison just a tick above Malik Neighbors.
Sticking with the wide receivers and the Gators, probably the only player the Gators will have drafted is Ricky Pearsall. Steve, I don't watch all the tape you guys do. I just see him in person and practicing in the games. I think he's outstanding. I think he's a guy that can play in this league a long time. Your thoughts on Ricky Pearsall and where he possibly could go?
Yeah, I mean, I watch every Florida game too, and sometimes I think the idea that he looked like one of the best players on the field for the last 2 years, right? When whether it was Anthony Richardson throwing the ball, whether it's Graham Mertz, I think that stuff plays. I mean, Pearsall looked fast, he played fast, and then he got into the offseason and he really ticked every box during the offseason. He had a really good Senior Bowl. I was down there. It was him and Roman Wilson from Michigan, looked like the two best receivers during practice. Tough to cover. I don't think he's just a slot. I think you can move him around, put him in motion, keep him on the outside, let him get behind the defense. I think Pearsall's probably the best double move receiver that I've seen in a long time. His ability to just get in and out of breaks on double moves and create big play opportunities. I'm a huge Ricky Pearsall fan. And honestly, I think a lot of it was just seeing he had to be the guy for Florida's receiving corps as they were developing the last 2 years. And he still made big plays no matter what. So I'm a big fan of Pearsall. And I think, some team's going to get a really good player probably early in the second round.
Yeah, Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by it. We got Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus. Ben in Shreveport on the Titan MR text line wants to know who is a sleeper in the draft.
Well, sleepers are funny these days because so many people cover the draft, and everybody's been mentioned at some point. I'll say this: there's a guy that's from Miami, Leonard Taylor III, the defensive tackle, former 5-star, and he kind of disappointed this year. I don't think he developed the way he could have, but he's fallen into the pick 100 range or whatever it might be. And I think he still has immense potential. I think 2022 as an up the field penetrating defensive tackle, he showed a lot of potential. And that at Miami, he's playing a lot of nose tackle last year, just didn't look as explosive. So I think Leonard Taylor III has a chance to be a really good player down the line. And then the other guy I'll mention is UCLA edge rusher Gabriel Murphy, who is an outstanding college player, but he's got short arms. And you can't have that at the next level. But if you get that on day 3, I think he's a guy that could still have some juice off the edge and create some havoc as a pass rusher.
Who's the best defensive player in this draft, in your opinion?
I think it's Latu, the other edge from UCLA. I mean, he's got this neck injury that everybody's going to be looking into, but Latu over the last 2 years, best pass rusher in college football, one of the best pass rushers we've seen at PFF from a play-by-play grading standpoint since we started this in 2014. Production up there with the Boses and Myles Garrett, those types of players, Chase Young. So I think Latu is outstanding. The only question is going to be that injury concern. So I think there's some buzz about Latu maybe being the top defensive player off the board. Maybe he ends up with the Falcons at 8. And I think that's the play. And if the injury does force Latu to drop and he's sitting there at 15, 17, 20, whatever it might be, I think he becomes the absolute steal of the draft for any team that picks him up.
Dan's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Metal Law. Does the NFL care at all if a player transfers all the time? Will that ever be a factor considering all the questions they ask their draft picks?
I mean, they probably care about it a little bit right now, but I think as that becomes more normalized, I don't think it's as big of a deal. At the end of the day, though, most of the best players are staying put. But in the case of the quarterbacks, guys like Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix, we got to see them in multiple schemes. We got to see Michael Penix go to a whole new program and elevate it. We got to see Bo Nix, completely change his game. He looked like he was playing like Jay Cutler at Auburn, and then he starts playing like Alex Smith when he gets to Oregon. Completely transformed his style of play. I think those end up being positives at the end of the day because you get to evaluate guys in multiple systems, which you weren't able to do previously. So I think over time it won't be that big of a hindrance for prospects.
On the Titan MR text line, Roger in Fort Worth, Texas says, what team, in your opinion, made the best offseason moves?
So I don't know that Kirk Cousins is going to lead the Falcons to a Super Bowl or anything, but for a team that was so quarterback desperate and they're sitting there at number 8 with 4 teams ahead of them who could have taken quarterbacks, I think the Falcons just getting their QB so they could come into the draft was a smart move so they can pick the best player at 8, trade down. So it's given them a lot of flexibility. So I love what the Falcons have done, and I love what the Detroit Lions have done. they, over the last couple of years, have built such incredible depth, which is the opposite of what the Lions were 3 or 4 years ago. They really have backups who could be starting on other teams. And for me, the best strategy going into the draft is filling all your holes, making sure that you have your roster as close to set as possible so that you can make 7, 8, 9 draft picks that are truly the best players on the board. And so I think the Lions have been able to do that, go into the draft with very few needs. And it's just a great team building strategy. So I love what the Lions have done, bringing in some great defensive line talent and sharp moves on the offensive line to just make sure they're in good position here for the draft.
Joseph's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mel Law. This running back class is pretty weak. Does Steve see a possible star in this running back class?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weak, but I think there are definitely some good players here. I'd say Jonathan Brooks from Texas, who's coming off of injury. I think he would have been a fringe first rounder if he didn't get hurt. I think Brooks is the best running back in the draft once he gets healthy. I'm a big fan, even though he didn't test well. I'm a big fan of Bucky Irving from Oregon. He's a little undersized, but I think he's just going to be in the NFL and make plays because of his shiftiness. And I liked Audric Estime from Notre Dame. I was surprised how much I liked him for a bigger back. I think he moves pretty well, creates some big plays. So I think those 3 guys, Jalen Wright from Tennessee, we've seen his big playability in the SEC. It's a tough scheme at Tennessee as far as projecting players to the NFL, but Wright has the juice to create big plays if he gets into the right system. So it's a weak class as far as, surefire prospects. But Trey Benson from Florida State, I think he's going to be a good player at the next level. I think there's a lot of good running backs. So I think that mid-second to 4th round range, there are going to be some good players available.
All right, before we go, we got a lot of people obviously here in the state of Florida that are fans of all 3 NFL teams. Let's start with the Buccaneers. Andy has a question. Do you think Tampa will draft a QB? And if they do, what does that mean for Kyle Trask moving forward? What do you think the Bucs do besides if they do anything at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I think if anything, it's certainly not in the first round. I think Spencer Rattler from South Carolina is the name for a lot of teams that are looking for a backup or a developmental guy. And I think teams like the Bucs, who are kind of in this, they paid Baker Mayfield, but they're not really tied to him long term, so they could always be in that mix. I think a Spencer Rattler could be in play for Tampa Bay, but I don't think they're going out of their way to take a QB the first couple rounds. So I think they're going to try to build around Baker Mayfield, and might mean one more year backing up for Trask in Tampa Bay.
What about down in Miami?
Yeah, I think they're in a pretty interesting spot at 21. I think there's some good interior defensive line talent. The challenge for Miami right now, I believe, is they're going to hit this place where they have to pay Tua. They have to pay a lot of money for these big name players. They haven't drafted a ton over the last couple of years, lost that first rounder. So they need to start getting younger. I love what Miami did last year and the way they improved their team. I think they're still in a decent spot, but now it's time to build through the draft. So take the best player at 21, could be an interior offensive lineman, interior defensive lineman. I think there's value there. Keep loading up with fast playmakers, give Tua every opportunity to succeed. But it's a big draft or 2 for Miami because they have to start resetting that roster a little bit, getting younger as some of their big money players get a little bit older.
When you look at Jacksonville, obviously last year was a disappointment coming off the previous year. What do the Jags need to do to take that next step? Because when you look at the Houston Texans now, what they've done made that division much more difficult.
Yeah, it's an interesting offseason for the Jags. I think they've lost some key players, but replaced them with supposed key players. I think it probably ends up in the wash. I'm still a little concerned at the receiver core. Bringing in a Gabe Davis to complement Christian Kirk. I think there's more that they can do there. I think on paper the offensive line looks solid, but they could always use more depth. And I like what they did on the defensive line, bringing in Eric Armstead. I'm not a huge fan so far of Trayvon Walker opposite Josh Allen, but I think as a trio they could work well together. To me, it's all about adding good players in depth. I think a little bit more on the defensive line, a little bit more in the secondary, and give me another big-time playmaker. We haven't really seen that from Trevor Lawrence or had that for Trevor Lawrence yet. Christian Kirk's the biggest receiver that they've gotten, but I think he's more of a 2 complementary guy. I think Gabe Davis is more of a complementary guy. Can the Jags get another big-time playmaker to make life easier for Trevor Lawrence?
All right, we've got 2 more questions here, and we'll get you out of here. This is from Wood. He wants to know what's going to happen with Kadarius Toney with the Chiefs.
I mean, I think he's probably run his course in Kansas City. I mean, he's such a dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands, but there were so many mistakes, obviously, not just lining up off sides at a key play, but there's fumbles and drops and just key plays where he just hasn't had a feel for the position. And I think that's what's really been lacking for Tony since he's been in the NFL. You know, he'll still get opportunities. I don't see the Chiefs giving him many more opportunities because Kansas City's in this spot where if they just don't make mistakes like they did on their playoff run, they're tough to beat. And so they almost have to just play it safe, not make mistakes. And unfortunately, that's just not the way Tony's been playing ball the last couple of years.
Yeah, John's question was, how surprised are you that Ricky Pearsall may be the only Gator drafted?
Yeah, I mean, even in years where, you know, Will Muschamp was there at Florida and it felt like some down years relative to the previous decade or so, they were still having 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive players drafted, some high draft picks. So it's been a down couple of years, right, as far as bringing talent in. But I think they're on the upswing. But it's any given year where it's like, hey, only one Gator getting drafted. Of course, that's a massive surprise. So got to get that influx of talent and get things going back the other way. But I think they're pointed in the right direction despite the very difficult schedule here coming up this season.
The last thing, Anthony Richardson coming off the shoulder surgery. I've seen clips of him throwing. What are you hearing in Indianapolis? Will be 100% for mini camps, or are they going to wait till later in the summer to get him going?
I'm not sure exactly where he is right now, but I think they're going to be really conservative. I mean, it's an organization that had Andrew Luck retire on them and dealt with all those injuries. They've already referenced that as far as Anthony Richardson goes. They're going to be as conservative as possible, play the long game. I know it doesn't seem like much, but remember, it's a 17-game schedule now, which does add a lot of wear and tear to players, even though it's one extra week. It's a long season, and I think teams are just more cautious of those types of things right now. So I think they'll take their time. And Richardson's another guy, like I said about Jaden Daniels a little while ago. Even though he's big and tough and strong, you got to be careful with the playing style. You have to, you know, pick your spots where you're dropping your shoulder versus taking big hits. And I think that's going to be huge for Richardson's career because he's already battled injuries the last few seasons. Got to stay healthy. And I think the Colts are going to do everything they can to make sure that he is 100% ready to go.
Yeah, I agree. I try to tell people, Steve, the NFL, it doesn't matter how big the quarterbacks or the running backs, receivers are. The dudes on the other side of the ball are trained, paid killers. I mean, they try to hurt people. And so he needs to protect himself. Steve, let everybody know how they can follow your work, listen to your podcast, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I co-host the PFF NFL podcast. So wherever you listen to podcasts, just search PFF and NFL. You'll see my mini afro pop up there. So click and subscribe to that. And then, PFF.com. We have all this great draft coverage and draft guide and everything you need for draft night. Big week.
Yeah, great stuff as always, my man. I appreciate your time.
Yep, you got it. Thank you.
Yep, that's Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus. The guy knows his stuff and does a tremendous job. So make sure you check him out at Pro Football Focus. Live a healthier lifestyle with our bold, flavorful smoothies and our amazing food. Tropical smoothie. When you eat better, you feel better. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Again, I want to thank Steve Palazzolo and Buddy Martin for joining us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Tomorrow's program, we'll have JC. We're going to have Mike Morgan, talk a little college sports. But Mike's a big NFL draft junkie as well, so we'll get his thoughts on that. And as I said, Stetson tonight against Gator baseball. Tomorrow night, Florida State comes to town to play the Lady Gator softball team. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.